The evening had started off well for Linda and her husband Tom, as they joined their colleagues at a lavish office party to celebrate the company's recent success. The venue was elegantly decorated, with shimmering lights and a live band playing upbeat tunes that set a festive mood. Everyone was dressed in their best, with Linda wearing a beautiful blue dress that complemented her eyes, while Tom had chosen a sharp suit. They mingled with others, sharing laughs and stories from the past quarter. As the night progressed, the atmosphere was light and cheerful, with colleagues dancing and enjoying the gourmet food spread across the buffet. Linda was well liked in her office, known for her dedication and hard work that had recently earned her a significant promotion. She was in high spirits, chatting animatedly with her team about their upcoming projects. However, Tom, who had always been more conservative, wasn't feeling as jubilant. He had grown up in a family where traditional roles were emphasized, and despite his initial support, he found it increasingly difficult to accept Linda's rising career, especially as it meant she often worked late and traveled for business meetings. As the night wore on, Tom's discomfort turned into irritation. He watched as Linda laughed and shared a celebratory toast with her boss, feeling a twinge of jealousy. Fetching another drink, he brooded over his thoughts, his mood darkening. By the time Linda joined him again, he was visibly upset. "Can we talk?" Tom's voice was stern as he pulled Linda aside, away from the prying eyes of her colleagues. His grip on her arm was tighter than necessary. "You're spending too much time at work. I think it's time you considered stepping down." Linda was taken aback. "Tom, we've talked about this. My job is important to me. It's not just about work. It's about what I'm passionate about. Why can't you be happy for me?" Tom's face hardened. "I am happy for you, but I think it's enough now. You need to focus on us, on our family plans. Isn't it time you prioritize what's really important?" Linda felt a mix of anger and disappointment. "I can't believe you're asking me this now here. We can have both, my career and our life together. Why can't you see that?" The argument escalated as Tom's voice grew louder, attracting a few curious looks from nearby colleagues. "I'm your husband, Linda. It's embarrassing to have others think I can't provide for us, that my wife has to work." Linda's response was calm but firm. "It's not about you providing, Tom. It's about me living my life too. I won't quit my job because of outdated ideas you cling to." At that moment, fueled by frustration and perhaps too much alcohol, Tom's response was shocking and completely out of character. In a sudden outburst, he struck Linda, causing a stunned silence to ripple through the nearby crowd. Linda's cheek reddened as she stood frozen, the pain of the slap less than the pain of the betrayal. The music seemed to falter, and the festive atmosphere evaporated as colleagues rushed over, concerned and outraged by what had just transpired. Tom's action at the party had immediate consequences, leaving everyone around them in a state of shock. The music had stopped abruptly, and the lively chatter turned into murmurs of disbelief. Linda, holding her cheek, quickly walked away from Tom, her eyes welling up with tears, not from the pain of the slap, but from the sheer embarrassment and betrayal she felt at that moment. People at the party, many of whom were Linda's colleagues and friends, quickly surrounded her, offering comfort and support. Someone handed her a glass of water, while another fetched some ice wrapped in a cloth to soothe her reddened cheek. The support was overwhelming, but also a stark reminder of the incident's public nature. Meanwhile, Tom, realizing the gravity of what he'd done, stood frozen. His initial anger faded, replaced by a creeping sense of regret. He looked around at the faces of their friends and colleagues, seeing a mix of shock, disgust, and disappointment. No one came forward to console them. Instead, they turned their backs, whispering among themselves. It was clear that his actions had not only hurt Linda, but also his own standing among his peers. As Linda was led to a quieter corner of the room by a couple of her closest colleagues, the party's mood had irrevocably changed. The band hesitantly began playing again, but the music now seemed out of place, a feeble attempt to salvage a celebration that had already been marred. One of Linda's colleagues, Janet, who also happened to be a good friend, suggested that Linda should report the incident. "You can't let him get away with this, Linda. It's not right, and Tom needs to understand the consequences of his actions," Janet said firmly. Others nodded in agreement, their faces showing a mix of concern and anger. Back at the scene, Tom tried to approach Linda, possibly to apologize, but was stopped by a couple of colleagues. "It's best you leave, Tom," one of them said sternly. "Give her space. What you did is unacceptable, and you can't fix this tonight." Feeling isolated and confused, Tom finally realized the severity of his mistake and left the party alone, his head down, engulfed by his thoughts. Linda, meanwhile, took a deep breath, bolstered by the support around her. She knew that the night had changed not just the trajectory of the evening, but potentially her entire life. After some discussion, and with the support of her friends, she decided it was time to take legal action. It was a decision made not in haste, but in the pursuit of justice and self-respect. She spent the rest of the evening planning her next steps, the support of her colleagues making her feel less alone and more empowered to stand up for herself. The incident at the party became a pivotal moment, not just in Linda and Tom's relationship, but as a stark illustration of personal boundaries and the community's role in supporting those who have been wronged. In the days following the party, the incident between Linda and Tom became the talk of their circle and beyond. Word spread quickly through office gossip and whispered conversations, not just about the incident itself, but about the broader implications it had on workplace relationships and personal boundaries. Linda, once known primarily for her professional achievements, now found herself at the center of a different kind of attention, one that brought with it a mix of sympathy and unwanted pity. Despite the discomfort, Linda felt empowered by the support she received. Her phone was inundated with messages from colleagues offering words of encouragement and offers to help in any way they could. This network of support solidified her resolve to take legal action against Tom for his behavior. She contacted a lawyer who specialized in family law, explaining her situation and seeking advice on the best course of action. Meanwhile, Tom faced a different reality. His morning arrival at the office was met with cold stares and a noticeable silence. His attempts to engage in normal conversation were met with short, curt responses. The isolation he felt at work was a stark contrast to the inclusive and friendly environment he had once enjoyed. The gravity of his actions sank in deeper each day as he noticed the shift in his colleagues' behavior towards him. Tom also began to face professional repercussions. His supervisor called him in for a formal meeting, where he was reprimanded and informed that his behavior had not only violated the company's code of conduct, but also jeopardized his position. He was put on administrative leave pending a more thorough investigation, a move that made him realize the severity of his actions and the potential loss of his career. Linda, on the other hand, used her time to focus on her well-being and legal preparations. She attended counseling sessions, which helped her process the emotional aftermath of the incident. These sessions provided a safe space for her to express her feelings and concerns, strengthening her mental and emotional health. The community's reaction was also a significant part of the aftermath. A local women's rights group, having heard about the incident, reached out to Linda, offering their support and resources. They discussed the possibility of her speaking at an upcoming event about her experience, hoping to use her story to raise awareness about domestic violence and the importance of taking action. As the legal process began, Linda found herself more prepared than she had anticipated. Her lawyer was supportive and thorough, ensuring that every detail was addressed. As they prepared for the first hearing, Linda felt a mix of nerves and determination. She knew that standing up for herself in court was about more than just her personal justice. It was about setting a precedent for other women who might find themselves in similar situations. Tom, realizing the extent of the consequences of his actions, began to reflect on his choices. He reached out to a therapist to address his behavior and started attending anger management classes. Although he knew this wouldn't change the past, he hoped to understand and improve himself, whatever the outcome of the legal proceedings. As the day of the hearing approached, both Linda and Tom prepared to face each other, each embarking on their paths toward resolution and change. The community watched and waited, hoping for a fair and just outcome that would bring closure to the ordeal. Linda woke up on the morning of the hearing feeling a mixture of nerves and determination. She had spent countless hours preparing with her lawyer, going over every detail of what happened at the party. She knew that today was about more than just her. It was about standing up for what was right and setting an example for others who might find themselves in similar situations. After a quiet breakfast, Linda dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident and strong. She looked at herself in the mirror, took a deep breath, and reminded herself of all the support she had behind her. Her phone beeped with a message from Janet, her close colleague and friend, reminding her that she was not alone and that many were standing by her side. On her way to the courthouse, Linda's mind replayed the events of the party, but she focused on the support she had received afterward, not the incident itself. Her lawyer met her at the entrance, offering a reassuring smile and a quick rundown of the day's schedule. They went over the key points they would present, focusing on Tom's unacceptable behavior and its impact on Linda. Meanwhile, Tom had also arrived at the courthouse, looking visibly nervous. He knew that the consequences of his actions could be severe and that today could change his life forever. Despite this, he felt a strange relief at having the chance to apologize and possibly make amends. He had spent the past weeks in counseling and anger management, confronting the underlying issues that led to his behavior. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense as the proceedings began. Linda took the stand first, her voice steady as she recounted the details of the incident. She spoke about how Tom's actions had not only caused her physical pain, but had also left deep emotional scars. She explained how the incident had affected her professional life and her sense of safety and well-being. Tom listened, his head bowed, as Linda spoke. When it was his turn to speak, he took a deep breath and apologized sincerely for his actions. He talked about the steps he had taken since the party to understand and change his behavior, including his therapy sessions and anger management classes. He expressed his hope that the court would allow him the opportunity to continue his efforts to change. The judge listened carefully to both sides, taking into consideration the seriousness of the incident, Tom's remorse and steps toward rehabilitation, and the support and impact on Linda. The community's interest and the presence of some of Linda's colleagues and friends in the courtroom underscored the wider implications of the case. After a recess, the judge returned with a decision that balanced justice with a path to rehabilitation for Tom. He was required to continue his counseling and was given a sentence that reflected both the seriousness of his actions and his efforts to make amends. Linda felt a weight lift from her shoulders as the judge announced the decision. She knew that the legal battle was just one part of her journey, but today marked a significant step in moving forward. As she walked out of the courtroom, she was met with hugs and words of encouragement from her friends and colleagues who had come to support her. The experience had been harrowing, but Linda felt that she had emerged stronger and more resolved to help others who might face similar challenges. In the weeks following the court's decision, the community's response was overwhelmingly positive towards Linda. News of the hearing had spread, and many admired her courage in standing up for herself. Local newspapers and online forums praised her determination, and she even received invitations to speak at events about her experience and the importance of addressing and standing up against inappropriate behavior. Linda felt empowered by the support, but she also realized the responsibility that came with her newfound visibility. She decided to use her platform to advocate for victims of similar situations, partnering with local women's rights groups to organize workshops and seminars. Her message was clear: no one should feel alone or powerless in such situations. At the same time, Tom's journey was also unfolding in a public way, though it was a path of redemption and learning. He continued his therapy sessions, finding them profoundly transformative. He began to understand the deep-seated issues that had driven his behavior, and with professional help, he worked on strategies to manage his emotions and reactions better. His public apology, published in the community newsletter, detailed his regret and his commitment to becoming a better person. The response was mixed, but many appreciated his willingness to own up to his mistakes and work towards change. Back at work, Linda's colleagues rallied around her, their respect for her strength and integrity deepening. Her boss offered her the opportunity to lead a new project focused on corporate social responsibility, a chance for her to influence the company's culture positively. She embraced this role enthusiastically, driven by a desire to create a safe and supportive work environment. The local women's group that had reached out to Linda reported an increase in awareness and engagement from the community. Inspired by Linda's story, more individuals came forward to share their experiences and seek help. The group organized community forums that facilitated discussions on personal boundaries and respectful behavior, using Linda's case as a springboard for broader conversations about change and mutual respect in personal and professional relationships. As the months passed, Linda became a prominent figure in the movement against domestic and workplace abuse. She was invited to schools and universities to share her story, and her talks were impactful, often leaving audiences moved and motivated to support the cause. Her experience had turned into a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and advocating for change. Through it all, Linda maintained a humble perspective. She knew her journey had just begun, and that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But she also knew she had a strong community behind her, and her resolve to make a difference was stronger than ever. She continued to work with her lawyer and the women's rights group to develop resources and support networks for others in similar situations, ensuring that her experience served as a beacon of hope and a catalyst for positive change. As time moved on, Tom worked diligently on his personal growth, attending therapy sessions consistently and engaging in community service as part of his restitution. He volunteered at a local shelter where he helped with daily operations and learned to channel his energy positively. This involvement not only served as a form of making amends, but also provided Tom with a new perspective on life and the struggles of others. Tom's efforts to change were genuine, and gradually, he started to regain a sense of self-worth. His therapist noted significant progress in how he handled frustration and anger, skills that Tom had struggled with for much of his adult life. These changes did not go unnoticed by his former colleagues and friends, some of whom cautiously began reaching out to offer support and acknowledge his efforts. Meanwhile, Linda continued to thrive both personally and professionally. Her role as a corporate responsibility leader brought new initiatives to her company, focusing on creating an inclusive and supportive workplace. She led by example, encouraging open dialogue and implementing training sessions that addressed conflict resolution and respect in the workplace. Linda also became a board member of the local women's rights group, where she helped to strategize new outreach programs. Her story had inspired a grant from a national foundation, which enabled the group to expand their services. Linda was deeply involved in planning a series of workshops aimed at young adults, teaching them about healthy relationships and self-respect, initiatives that quickly gained popularity in the community. Back at home, Tom's relationship with Linda remained strained but respectful. They communicated primarily through emails and occasional phone calls, discussing logistical matters and mutual acquaintances. Tom respected Linda's need for space and was focused on proving that his change was lasting, hoping that someday it might mend some of the emotional wounds he had caused. One day, Tom shared his story of recovery and redemption at a community meeting organized by the shelter he volunteered at. He spoke candidly about his past actions, the consequences, and his journey towards personal improvement. His talk was met with cautious optimism, but also with a palpable respect from the audience for his willingness to publicly acknowledge his faults and work towards change. Simultaneously, Linda's advocacy work brought her to a national conference on women's rights, where she delivered a keynote address about corporate responsibility in preventing workplace abuse. Her speech was powerful, drawing on her personal experiences to highlight the importance of supportive environments that uphold dignity and respect for all employees. The paths Linda and Tom were on showed their individual growth and their impact on the community. While they navigated these paths separately, both were contributing to broader conversations about personal accountability, healing, and community support. Each had found a way to transform their experience into actions that helped others, and in doing so, they found new purposes that helped them to move forward in their lives. Months had passed since the incident at the party, and both Linda and Tom had grown in different ways. Linda had become a strong advocate for workplace rights and respect in relationships, while Tom had continued working on his personal transformation. Their lives had taken separate paths, yet their shared past remained a reminder of the lessons they had learned. Linda was busier than ever. She had been invited to speak at another major conference about professional and personal boundaries, and her story was inspiring others to take action in their own lives. She had become a mentor to young professionals, especially women, helping them navigate career growth while maintaining self-respect and confidence. Her leadership at work had not gone unnoticed, and soon she was offered a higher position at a larger company with more influence. Despite the new opportunities, Linda still took time to reflect on how far she had come. She had once been a woman afraid of speaking out, worried about how people would perceive her actions. Now she stood tall, proud of her journey, and determined to make a difference. She had also started rebuilding her personal life, reconnecting with friends she had lost touch with, and even allowing herself to explore new relationships. On the other hand, Tom had also made significant progress. His therapy sessions had helped him understand the root of his anger and how to manage his emotions. He had also made an effort to rebuild broken relationships with friends and family, acknowledging his mistakes and proving through actions that he was changing. His work at the shelter had given him a new sense of purpose, and he found himself advising young men on controlling their emotions and respecting others. One evening, as Linda was walking through a community center where she was scheduled to give a talk, she unexpectedly ran into Tom. It was their first meeting in a long time. He had been there to help with an awareness event, not knowing Linda was one of the speakers. For a moment, there was silence between them, both unsure of what to say. Finally, Tom spoke. "Linda, I just wanted to say that I'm truly sorry. I don't expect anything from you, but I need you to know that I regret everything. I've changed, and I hope you're doing well." Linda looked at him, searching for any sign of insincerity, but she found none. He seemed different, calmer, more composed, and genuinely regretful. She nodded and replied, "I believe you, Tom. I hope you continue to grow and do better." It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was closure. For both of them, it was a moment of peace, a silent acknowledgement of the past, and the understanding that they had both moved forward. They no longer had any ties, but there was no hatred, only acceptance. As Linda walked into the hall to deliver her speech, she felt lighter. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. She was ready for the next chapter, whatever it might bring. As Linda stepped onto the stage that evening, she looked out at the audience and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The people in front of her weren't just attendees. Many of them were individuals who had faced struggles like hers, people seeking strength, guidance, and hope. She had once been in a place where fear and doubt clouded her thoughts, but now she stood with confidence, ready to share her journey. She began her speech by talking about the importance of self-respect, setting boundaries, and standing up for oneself, no matter how difficult it might be. She shared how speaking out had changed her life, not just by bringing justice, but by giving her the strength to rebuild herself. The audience listened intently, some taking notes, others nodding in agreement. It was clear that her words resonated deeply with them. After her speech, many people came up to her, thanking her for sharing her story. A young woman, no older than 20, hesitated before approaching her. With a shaky voice, she said, "Your story gave me the courage to leave a situation that wasn't right for me. I didn't think I had the strength to walk away, but hearing you today made me realize I do." Linda felt a lump in her throat. This was exactly why she continued to speak out. If her experience could help even one person find her own strength, then everything she had been through had meaning. She gave the young woman a reassuring smile, and offered her resources and support, making sure she wouldn't have to face her struggles alone. Meanwhile, Tom had also continued his journey of change. His work at the shelter had turned into something he was passionate about. He had begun speaking to groups of young men about the importance of emotional control, respect, and accountability. He knew he could never change the past, but he hoped to prevent others from making the same mistakes he had. One evening, he sat alone, reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about Linda and how much she had grown. He felt genuine happiness for her, even though their paths had completely diverged. He knew they would likely never be close again, but he was at peace with that. They had both found their own way, learning and growing in different directions. For Linda, life continued to move forward in wonderful ways. Her career was flourishing, and she had built a strong support system around her. She had found happiness in her independence, no longer seeking validation from anyone but herself. She had learned that true strength came from within, and that she was capable of shaping her own future. As she sat on her balcony that night, looking at the city lights, she felt a sense of gratitude. The past had been difficult, but it had led her to this moment, a moment of peace, of growth, and of endless possibilities. And with that thought, she smiled, knowing that her story was far from over. It was just the beginning of a new chapter.